that gesture.
Shall we start?
Yeah.
Sharda, can we start?
Shall we?
Sure, ma'am. Sure, ma'am.
Yes. So, we are ready to start. Just 1 minute. Namaskar. I'm very happy to welcome all of you to the 24th session of the Trivandrum AWC branch Literary and Cultural Forum. So it has been a long journey for us, 24 webinars. And today we have a very special guest. We are very happy to have Dr. Sharda Devi. She has very recently, on 8th of December, she has been awarded a PhD by the University of Kerala. So we start by congratulating her on this achievement. Congratulations, Dr. Sharda, and best of luck. May you,
Thank you, ma'am.
do more and more in the years to come, and we hope to see you doing really great work in this field. A very hearty welcome and congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am.
So now I request Dr. Jamila Begum, Director of the Literary and Cultural Forum, to continue the session. Over to you, Jamila.
Thank you. Thank you, Usha. A very good evening to all the members of the AIWC who have joined us on this platform. And also a warm welcome to Sharada, who is the star of the day. And a special congratulations to Sharada for achieving a distinction that not many could even dream of. I must say, Sharada dreamt big and she made it to it. That is what is really great about an achiever like her, who has many weaknesses of physically, but mentally she's one of the strongest persons I have ever met or ever heard of. She's a continuing presence on the Facebook, and I follow all that she writes. She writes well and is very much engaged with doing something for the disabled and to bring disability studies into the academic world. I would like to introduce Dr. Sharada to this platform. She did her PhD research from the Institute of English, University of Kerala, and it's in a very short time, I must say, within a year, she got her PhD, which is very fast for Kerala University, I must say. She worked as a guest lecturer for a year at Government College for Women, presented over 11 papers, published a few research articles in UGC listed peer-reviewed journals. Her article, particularly titled Molding Disabled Identities, a Subjective Analysis, has been published in the book Wounded Wings, Cultural Politics of Disability in Literature and Cinema in 2022. And it is published by the Ubanayan publication. She is awaiting the publication of another chapter on disability studies, which is going to be published by Cambridge Publishers. As she has been a resource person, she has delivered 7 lectures for higher education institutions. Sharada is a person, as she says, with a physical disability and a wheelchair user. She is interested in exploring the intersections with media, gender, sexuality, and so on. She worked as an intern at the Center for Disability Studies at CMS College, Kottayam in Kerala, and contributed to the comprehensive annotated bibliography of disability studies prepared by the center. She's also done editing and proofreading of chapters for the upcoming book. At present, she is freelancing in the academic field. This is the biodata that she gave me, but I would like to add something more to that. I have known Sharda for a very long time now. I remember as about 10 years back, I think, she rolled up into the room with her mother in a wheelchair when I was giving a talk in the women's college. And I must say that she immediately caught my attention, because here was a girl who, in spite, and remember, gender was something that is a challenge here in today's society. A woman in a wheelchair aspiring to become a trainer or a teacher. Right from that time, I'm sure she had this ambition in her to become a teacher. I remember her once telling, I want to be a teacher when I grow up, and I want to take my PhD in English. So a big congratulations to you, Sharda, on this day. And
you,
I'm
ma'am.
very happy that you are with us on this platform. Talking about disability studies, which is the topic for today, disability as diversity. For a very long time, we had heard of Charles Darwin's The Survival of the Fittest in terms of evolution. And the survival of the fittest meant medically fit people would, in fact, be the fittest people in this world. But disabilities have been always there in our society, in our culture, in all parts of the world. It's not only in India, but what we have or what we see around are people who have, in one way or another, been physically challenged. In yesterday's Facebook, I think Sharda had a profile which says, I am not disabled. No, I am not, what did you say, Sharda? It's something like...
Differently able, ma'am.
Yeah. I'm an able person. And she, in fact, flags her disability. That's what that struck me. Often we don't want to talk about our disability. But here is someone who thinks that being disabled means something that should not and keep her out of society. Being disabled means to be part of society, just as we talk about marginalized people. The disabled need to get to the center of any social movement that upholds the principles of democracy, liberty for everyone, freedom for everyone, the right to live for everyone. And that is what I think is a living icon. I would say Sharda is an icon of that, a living icon of that principle of democracy. If we look back, we will find once again that as early as, say, 2000 years back, when the archaeologists excavated the place called Taxila, they found a lot of toys that seemed toys and other things that showcased that they were disabled people even at that point of time in the 2000 BC. And special schools were there for them. I recently read an article which talked about a conversation between 3 teachers in a university in US. And these 3 teachers were handicapped in one way or another. Though today we would say, we would not use words like handicap, or we would say they are physically challenged, we would say they are otherwise able. But I think often we forget the fact that because of this ostracism that is put on the notion of disability, we are hesitant to talk about it. Just as we talk about LTBC or other transgenders or gays or lesbians, where we would at one point of time have hesitated to use those words. But today they have become common parlance. And that is what disability should also become. It's not like they should be put into another compartment and be separated from society. They should be a part of society. They should come into society. Now, speaking about these 3 teachers, what I was struck by their narrative was that all 3 of them were blind or are blind, but they are teaching in a university to the children. And in the interview, what they were saying was that when I enter a classroom, the children there at first think that or feel that because I cannot see them, they can do anything in class. But the way she teaches, the way she uses language, the way she is able to understand what is happening in her class, it's a kind of, she says, it's a kind of intuitive notion that I have. I know what my students are doing. And very soon she found that the students were helping her out. And the students got into her world rather than she got into their world. Because once the students enter the world of the blind, they know what it is and how to feel it. And that is what I think should happen in our society also when we are talking about disability. To be able to enter their world, to be able to, it is not sympathy that they want. It is not the marginalization that they are looking for. They are not looking for something that they want different from others, but rather they want us to feel it in such a way that we enter their world and make them a part of our world. And that is what we are proposing to do on this platform, the All India Women's Conference, particularly thought about Sharada, because we are a very inclusive forum and we want everyone to feel that we have the liberty and we have the freedom and we have the right to be at the center stage. So here is Sharada at the center stage today for us, talking about diversity in disability and disability as diversity. So over to you, Sharada, and a very warm welcome once again to this forum. A warm welcome to all of you who have joined us here. Over to you, Sharada.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for this warm welcome and introduction. First, let me start the slideshow. I hope my slide is visible.
Yes.
Okay. So,
Yes.
very good evening to everyone. First, I would like to thank the organizers at IWC, especially Dr. Jamila Begum, ma'am, for giving me this opportunity to deliver this lecture as part of your lecture series. Actually, I regard this opportunity as a great privilege to get such a platform as something that I find great, because I'm only a growing researcher. So thank you, ma'am, for inviting me to deliver this lecture on disability studies. So as ma'am has already said, my area of research is disability studies. So many people have the misconception that disability studies is something that studies disability from the medical or biological point of view, but that is not true. Disability studies is actually a branch of the academic discipline called cultural studies. So it can be associated with many disciplines in order to understand disability within its social, political, historical, and cultural context. Like there are several factors that has contributed to the emergence of disability studies as an academic discipline. First, let's look let's know about those factors. So the disability studies discipline originated in the West in the 20th century, and there were several factors that led to the development and growth. For example, the success of the disability rights movement. It was one of the important factors that led to the emergence of disability studies as an academic discipline. Then the seminal works of scholars like Irving Goffman and Michel Foucault also led to the growth of disability studies. And also the flourishing of other interdisciplinary identity-based approaches. For example, feminist movement has greatly helped the growth and development of disability studies, because many feminist-related theories and frameworks have helped disability studies scholars in shaping theories of disability studies. So these are some of the important factors that have led to the emergence and also the growth of disability studies as an academic discipline. So like I said, this discipline originated in the early 20th century. So the disability rights movements all over the world have greatly impacted disability studies. And these disability rights movements started in the 1960s or 1970s, mainly in countries like UK, USA, etc. So the disability rights activists in the 1960s, they were actually inspired by communities like African Americans, Black people, women, lesbian and the gay men, etc. That is, the disability rights activists in the West were influenced by the rights movements of other marginalized communities. And these activists in the West, disability activists in the West, they led campaigns for changing the ways of understanding disability. That was the main point that we have to remember, because until then disability was something that was treated only from the medical point of view or biological point of view. So disability rights activists wanted to change that perspective. So they demanded a redefinition of disability from a personal medical problem to a political one. So disability should be regarded as a social and political identity, not as a biological identity. That was what the disability rights actors had demanded. And according to them, disability must not be seen as a problem of the individual's body. So I had said that this discipline does not follow the medical model. So basically the medical model regards disability as a problem of the individual's body or mind. So the entire blame is put on that individual. And it is treated as a kind of personal tragedy. A personal tragedy that can happen to some individuals, some unlucky or unfortunate individuals. That is the concept of the medical model and also the charity model. So the disability rights activists were against that kind of narrative. So they said that disability is not to be treated as a medical problem, as a problem of the individual's body. So they were against this medical model that assumes that disabled people are inferior to non-disabled people, both physically and psychologically. And because of this medical model, because of the influence of the medical model, what happens? These people will be treated as less humans. Their status will be below the human status, the so-called normal human status. And it considers disability, like I said, as a personal tragedy in which people with disabilities are regarded as victims. So the disability activists in the countries like the UK and the USA, they turned towards a radical political movement, and they were influenced by the Marxist ideals. We know the ideology of Marxism is supporting the empowerment of all marginalized classes. So this naturally influenced the disability rights actors in the UK and the USA. And I mentioned about the medical model. So the disability rights activists were against the medical model of disability. But they put forward a new model called the social model of disability. And what is the social model? The social model of disability approaches disability by affirming a relationship between people with impairments and the society that discriminates against them. So I said people with impairments, not disability. People with impairments means people who have some kind of limitations in their body or mind. That is impairment. So disability and impairment are two different concepts. So that is the first important thing that we have to remember in connection with disability studies. So the social model, according to the social model, people with impairments have a relation with the society that discriminates against them. And it is based on the dichotomy between impairment and disability and disabled and non-disabled. So this model is a significant one in the history of disability rights movements, and also in the history of the development of disability studies as an academic discipline. So the disability studies theorists, they contend that inequalities are constructed by disabling barriers that obstruct disabled people's full participation in society. So there, the impairments do not have much role. Yes, the impairments will cause many problems, many challenges, but society has to play a major role in the lives of people with impairments. So there are several disabling barriers produced by society for people with impairments. So because of these disabling barriers, people with impairments will not be able to participate in mainstream society. So the social model would enhance the self-confidence of disabled people, because until then, because of the influence of medical model, people with impairments had a kind of inferiority complex in their minds. They believed that they are victims of a personal tragedy. They are destined to suffer. So they alone have to be blamed. That was the belief of many people with impairments because of the influence of the medical model. But when the social model came up, it could boost the confidence of people with impairments. And another important contribution of the social model is that it was able to instill in them a positive sense of collective identity. We know in the case of other marginalized communities like the Blacks in America, they are fighting against discrimination and oppression collectively. In the case of the queer communities or the Dalits, they also have a collective fight against all kinds of oppression. So similarly, in the case of disability, the social model was able to do that, to bring all the people with impairments together into a collective so that they can fight together. They can challenge the systemic oppression and discrimination they have to face. So it was able to change the perception of these people altogether. And the disability rights movements all over the world, I mean, in many countries, led to many changes. Many legislative developments happened, like the Americans with Disabilities Act in July 1990. So this act is a significant one in the history of disability rights movements all over the world, because it was after the implementation of this act in America that other countries got influence, and they also started framing and implementing thereof acts. And it finally led to the formulation and implementation of the international treaty called the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities in 2006. So because of the significance of this Americans with Disabilities Act, July every year is now observed as Disability Pride Month. We have another Pride Month for the queer community, that is in June. So July is Disability Pride Month, but unfortunately, it is not so popular in India. But through the efforts of a few disabled people, including me, at least some non-disabled people and also disabled people are now aware of the fact that July is actually Disability Pride Month. So this was a landmark. This can be treated as a landmark in the history of disability rights movements all over the world. And by expressing a collective voice and turning attention away from the medicalization of individual bodies to the organization of society, such activism also led to the emergence of disability studies. So that's why I said at the beginning that disability studies has its origin or has its background from disability rights movements. And in this classic work called Stigma, which was published in 1963, the sociologist Irving Goffman had analyzed social interactions around people, including those with impairments, who differed from the expected norm. So that book is perhaps the first book in which this social oppression and discrimination faced by people with disabilities is discussed. He has implicitly referred to the case of people with disabilities there. So he implicitly pointed out how the significance of disability is socially formed and how it can vary by time and place. So that book is regarded as an important one by many disability studies scholars. So Goffman also demonstrated how stigmatized people can internalize rather than oppose these dominant standards by which they are deemed inferior. So nowadays, it's a known fact that the people who are marginalized because of several identities, they have the tendency to internalize these dominant norms. Like in the case of disabled people, the ableist beliefs internalized by disabled people will lead them to believe that they are inferior, they are unable to do anything, they are useless to society, and so Goffman had discussed all these things perhaps for the first time during the early 20th century. So that is why this book is regarded as an important one for disability studies. But he has not explicitly mentioned the disabled community, but we can find implicit references to the community in that book. And another scholar, Michel Foucault, he also has implicitly referred to how the disabled people are subjected to systemic oppression and discrimination. He has described how in the 19th century, bodies were treated as problems, and some bodies that do not conform to the dominant norms, these bodies were sequestered, controlled, diagnosed, and they were socially managed. So they were always under surveillance. These bodies that did not conform to the dominant norms of society. So there we can find references to disabled people, because people with impairments naturally are not able to conform to the dominant norms of society. They do not come under the standards of a so-called normal human being, because there are certain measurements or qualities that a so-called normal human being should have according to society. But these qualities or these measurements will not be applicable to people with impairments. So naturally, they will be regarded as not part of the mainstream society. So they will be segregated. So Foucault has implicitly referred to that. And Foucault's insights about madness, docile bodies, and the clinical gaze also proved useful for later disability studies scholars. And like I said in the beginning, the emergence of the field was also influenced by the rise of other identity-based, rights-based approaches, like the critical race studies, feminist studies, queer theory, and so on. So all these theories and approaches also influenced the growth of disability studies. So then in the year 1981, UN declared the International Year of Disabled People. So that was a turning point or a landmark incident in the history of disability rights movement and also disability studies. 1981 was the International Year of Disabled People. And why this is important? It's important because this signified a formal recognition that national governments are responsible for securing equal rights for disabled people. So with this, UN gave all the governments all over the world a responsibility. Until then, there was no such thing. Disabled people were mostly remaining marginalized in different countries. So with this, there occurred a change in the scenario concerning disabled people. Then other significant events or incidents related to disability rights are the African Decade of Persons with Disabilities. It was from 2000 to 2009, 10 years. Those 10 years were African Decade of Persons with Disabilities. And then there was the European Year of People with Disabilities. That was in 2003. And the Asian and Pacific Decade of Disabled Persons was from 2003 to 2012. And the Arab Decade of Disabled Persons was from 2003 to 2012. And concerning disability studies as an academic discipline, in Britain, the first disability course, disability studies course, was produced by an interdisciplinary team at the Open University in the year 1975. And the main person behind this was a clinical psychologist named Vic Finkelstein. And this disability studies course had some limitations because it was the first one. So obviously, there will be some limitations. It was mainly criticized for biases, and it was updated twice before its abolition in 1994. And so that means it was there for around 19 years. That course was there. And each time of revision, disabled people were involved in the production of course materials. So every year when the course was revised, the team invited disabled people in the formulation and production of course materials. So participation of disabled people was given more importance each year. So that is one significant thing related to this course. And the final version of this program was retitled the Disabling Society. And it influenced the development of future disability studies courses in the UK. So it had certain limitations, but excluding those limitations, we can say that it is a landmark one in the disability studies discipline, because it influenced other courses to be started in the UK. And in 1986, an important journal, academic journal related to disability studies was started. It is the first international journal exclusively devoted to disability issues, and it was titled Disability, Handicap and Society. But later it was renamed as Disability and Society. It was renamed Disability and Society in 1993. And in 1977, in USA, the first disability course was offered. And it was in the area of medical sociology. And it focused mainly on the experience of living with a disability. The main tutor was a disabled person. So that is very important. So the main tutor itself was a disabled person. And in 1981, a disabled sociologist and the chairperson of the medical sociology section of the American Sociology Association founded the Disability Studies Quarterly. So this journal is still there. It's very important. It's a significant journal associated with disability studies. So this journal was started by a disabled sociologist named Irving K. Zola. So that is another important landmark in the history of disability studies. And Irving K. Zola also co-founded the American-based Society for Disability Studies. And we know in feminist movement, we usually divide the feminist movement into different waves, like the first wave, the second wave, the third wave, the fourth wave, and so on. So we can perhaps divide the history of disability studies also into different waves. The first wave of disability studies dealt with the violence of representation, and it exposed discrimination and oppression, and focused on resistance and subversion of normative values. Like I said, there are so many dominant norms followed by people in society, and these norms affect the social status of disabled people. So the first wave of disability studies tried to subvert and challenge all these dominant normative values, and it focused also on how disabled people are represented. And this early wave of disability studies was during the 1980s and the 1990s. And it was followed by an extremely productive decade of more interdisciplinary work. So the second wave was the period after the early disability studies was mostly interdisciplinary, because disability was studied along with other identities. It was intersectional in nature. And disability studies in the 2000s elaborated on the earlier groundbreaking work that first called attention to disability as a cultural phenomenon, and it repudiated medical understandings of disability. So it was during the early 2000 that the concept that I have mentioned earlier, that is disability, is not a medical issue. It is a social, political, and cultural issue. So that concept was brought by disability studies in the 2000s, in that particular period of wave. And we can say that if you ask me what is the aim of disability studies as an academic discipline, I would say that the main aim of disability studies is to destigmatize disability, because there is a lot of stigma associated with disability. There are so many misconceptions in the minds of people about disability. So disability studies as an academic discipline wants to destigmatize disability, and it also aims to provide analytical frameworks to study disability as a form of diversity and to initiate the mainstreaming of disabled people in society. So disability is something that should not be treated as abnormality. Usually that is the case. Disabled people are treated as not normal. People won't call us abnormal nowadays, but implicitly there is a reference to that people with disabilities are treated as not normal. So disability should be treated as diversity. That is a main point concerning disability studies. And disabled people should be mainstream. They should be brought into the mainstream society. They also have the rights to lead life with dignity, just like non-disabled people. So that is about disability studies. So earlier I said that there are certain dominant norms in society. So this particular man and this movement had greatly contributed to that. Sir Francis Galton. Ma'am had initially talked about Charles Darwin's theory of natural selection. So Charles Darwin's cousin was this man called Sir Francis Galton. So he started a particular movement called Eugenics. So he was actually influenced by his cousin's theory of natural selection. So we know what the theory of natural selection is all about. So what is actually eugenics? So the idea of eugenics was that only certain people, certain groups of people had the right to reproduce. And therefore, what happened? Reproduction should be regarded, regulated based on an individual's characteristics and qualities. So according to eugenics, only certain sections of people were allowed to or should be allowed to reproduce generations with more desirable traits. So in the case of people with impairments, people with certain physical or mental limitations, they were not allowed to get married and to have children. Even if they got married, they were not allowed to reproduce. They were subjected to sterilization, sexual sterilization, so that they won't have any offspring. Because the belief was that if a disabled person or disabled people get married and have children, those children will also be born with impairments. So these children wouldn't have those desirable traits. These desirable traits are actually related to the dominant norms, like the physical body should be of this particular height, and particular size. There are certain measurements related to body and related to the mind and related to the abilities. So these are the desirable traits. So the people with impairments, physical or intellectual, they don't have these desirable traits. So they were not permitted to reproduce, to have children, so that the human race can be made so-called perfect and normal. So it was disabled people was one among the many groups of people who were subjected to eugenics. Other sections were like criminals, thieves, and so on, drunkards, etc. So disabled people were grouped together with these people, and they were regarded as antisocial. So the people who followed eugenics, they believed that it is their duty to purify the human race by exterminating all these anti-socials. So thus disability and disabled people were treated as threats to society. And in Germany, during the Nazi rule, we know many Jews were exterminated. Many disabled people also were exterminated. And Hitler was actually influenced by eugenics, the principles of eugenics. And it is said that hundreds and thousands of disabled people were subjected to many many violence, and they were exterminated in concentration camps. So that is because of the influence of eugenics. So, like I said about the dominant norms, being healthy has always been considered as a normal condition. And what is normal? What is regarded as normal? A normal quality or a normal thing is something that will be followed by majority of the population. So that becomes the normal. So those who fail to conform to that social norm of the majority will get dubbed as deviants. So this idea of the normal determines the way in which people with disabilities are treated in society. So in the West, this is the picture of goddess Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty in the Greek mythology. So Leonard Davis, in his book in Enforcing Normalcy, has talked about the societal infatuation for normalcy. So in the West, during ancient times, people had an infatuation for the ideal human being. So they had regarded the image of Aphrodite as a perfect ideal human being. So in that book, Leonard Davis said that in a place called Crotona, it's a legend actually, a sculptor named Zeus, he wanted to make a sculpture of a perfect, ideal, beautiful woman. So he wanted to find a model for that. So he searched that place for the perfect model, but he couldn't find a perfect one. So what he did was that he selected many women who possessed certain qualities that are supposed to be possessed by Aphrodite. And then he combined all those qualities to make the sculpture of goddess Aphrodite as the perfect, ideal, beautiful human woman. So that means all these perfect, ideal values that we have in our minds, that we internalize through certain generations, these are not existing in reality. They are non-existent. So we are just following something that do not exist at all, and we are then discriminating people just because of this infatuation. So that is what is happening in our society, not only in our society, all over the world. People are discriminated because of this non-existing normal values. So this is something that Lena Davis had discussed in that well-known book titled Enforcing Normalcy. So I had earlier mentioned that in 2006, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities was formulated. So this is an international human rights treaty, and its aim is to protect the rights and dignity of persons with disabilities. Almost all the countries have signed that treaty, including India. So in India, we had an act called the Persons with Disabilities Act in 1995. And after signing and after ratifying the UNCRPD, India amended that act and formulated the present act in 2016. And it is called the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, RPWD Act 2016. So it was after signing the UNCRPD. So initially I said that people have so many misconceptions about disability. Many people think that disability disability means physical or mental limitations, but that's not true. Yes, physical and mental limitations are part of disability, but there is much more. That is, the social role is there. So according to the UNCRPD, disability, I quote, results from the interaction between persons with impairments and attitudinal and environmental barriers that hinders their full and effective participation in society on an equal basis with others, unquote. So I already explained what is an impairment, that is physical and mental limitations. So when persons with impairments have to face many barriers in society, they can be attitudinal and environmental. So then disability is constructed. So we say gender is a social construct. Similarly, disability is also socially constructed. A person with an impairment becomes disabled when the society does not adapt to the special needs of that person. So when I say that I'm a person with a disability or I'm a disabled person, I'm referring not to my limitations, but I'm trying to emphasize the fact that I'm disabled by the society that do not provide me wheelchair-friendly facilities. So that is one thing that all of us should remember. Disability is socially constructed. And reasonable accommodation is very important. Reasonable accommodation means there are certain facilities required by persons with different kinds of impairments that will help those people to lead lives independently to a certain extent. In the case of persons like me, I'm a wheelchair user. For people like me, this RAM facility is one of the important facilities that are required for leading a mainstream life. And for blind people, there are facilities like screen readers, alt text, image description, and so on. For the deaf people, there are captioning, subtitles, sign language, etc. So the facilities, the reasonable accommodation differs according to the type of impairment, like physical or intellectual. So this is signified, this is emphasized in the UNCRPD. And these are some of the barriers that I have already mentioned. There are several barriers faced by disabled people that actually disable people with impairments. Physical barriers are like, there are two, man-made and natural. So man-made or technical ones are steps narrow entrances and slippery floors. The natural barriers are related to nature, so like paths, long distances, and social barriers. We know there are so many social barriers like prejudice, shame, pity, isolation, and overprotection. There are institutional barriers like lack of clear policies and strategies, knowledge, skills, inclusive designs. And communication barriers are related to blind people and deaf people. The lack of braille, signposts, interpreter, and so on. Like I said, impairment is a condition that is associated with the body or mind. But disability is the result of limited access to interaction with society due to social environment barriers. Then who is a disabled person? A disabled person is someone who has an impairment and who experiences disability in that environment. And this is an important concept, ableism. Ableism means discrimination in favor of non-disabled people. We have racism, casteism, sexism, etc. So similarly, ableism is discrimination against disabled people in favor of non-disabled people. There are different types of ableism, like physical, mental, medical, so many are there, and we all have ableism in our minds, but we are not aware of that because it's deeply entrenched in our minds, and ableism gets perpetuated from one generation to another. So it's very difficult to trace the roots of ableism and to challenge them. And because of that, there is this stigma faced by disabled people, including me. So, like I said, disability has to be treated as diversity, not as an abnormality, because human race is a diverse one. We cannot compare two people with each other. Every person is unique, and every person will have limitations. No one is perfect. No one is normal also. So we have to consider disability as part of that diversity in the human race, because there are so many intersectional factors like race, caste, nationality, gender, sexuality, and so on. So disability is also one of them. And these are some of the terms that you can use and you should not use. I mean, politically correct terms and politically incorrect terms, like handicapped, differently abled, crippled, victim, retarded, stricken, poor, unfortunate or special needs, normal or healthy people. These are offensive or derogatory words. Other words you can use like disability, persons with disabilities, people with disabilities, disabled persons, disabled people, etc. And like people with disabilities who achieve some kind of success are usually represented as courageous, brave or special, superhuman, etc. But that's not needed. People with disabilities are also ordinary human beings with some ability. So the only problem is that they have to face social discrimination and oppression. But there's no need to glorify the achievements of people with disabilities. And these are also some of the terms that you can use to refer to people with disabilities, and some of the terms that you shouldn't use at all. So thank you all.
Thank you, Sharada, for that very enlightening and interesting talk. I'm sure we all enjoyed listening to you. And I think in all our minds also, we are trying to now rearrange our thoughts and to consider what are the possibilities and the ways in which we can help people who have impairment to come into the mainstream. I'm sure as an NGO, we would all like to do what we can to make life happier for you and one among us, and not to be sidelined and stay differently. Your talk has just told us that you are not any different from any of us, because each one of us has some impairment and no one is perfect. And Aphrodite, the goddess herself, was conceived out of so many models of women and not just one woman. So this again is I think an eye-opener for many of us on this platform. Now the talk is open for discussion, and before we go to call up people to pose questions or make suggestions or offer their views, I would like to read out some of the comments that we had here on the chat box. Mr. Parid Baba Khan says, it's an excellent presentation. Congrats, Dr. Sharada Devi, ma'am. She's a young man. India is Janagi, I think, from far away has written this. India is one of the countries that has ratified the CRPD. That means India has agreed to make it the law of the country. And she says, by the way, even having put forth ADA so many years ago, the US has not yet ratified CRPD. So India is far ahead. Bhuneshwari says, congratulations, Dr. Sharada Devi, for an excellent composite presentation, providing and presenting and giving us a roadmap to what studies on disability should attempt to do. There are many messages that have been conveyed to all of us who call ourselves normal persons, which we should note, like the needs for removal of the stigma of being seen as disabled. Disability not to be treated as abnormality, rather it should be treated as diversity. Need for society to adapt to disabled persons and not the other way around. Kiran Verma says, thank you so much, ma'am. Vinay Chandran says, thanks. Bhuneshwari again says, we should all keep these in mind while we are with these very much normal and above in terms of their talents than many of the so-called normal ones. Sharada Devi says, thank you to everyone. Sharada has changed the definition of disability in our minds. Thank you. Indrani Sengupta says. And that's exactly why we had Sharada here on this platform. I think it is this awareness that most of us lack, and Sharada has brought to us very effectively an awareness of what it is to be called disabled in a so-called normal society. Kausalya says, thank you, ma'am, for the wonderful presentation. Can you recommend some books on disability? I think these are some of the comments in the chat box, but the floor is open for anyone to unmute and join us in the discussion. And Sharada, would you like to reply to these comments before we call in the...
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, everyone, for your messages. I'm feeling greatly overwhelmed to see all those positive words. And regarding the books on disability studies asked by Kausalya, to start with, Leonard Davis' books are good ones. You can refer to Leonard Davis' books like Enforcing Normalcy. That was the first book that I read when I started my research, because the most important points related to disability studies are concerning normalcy. So Leonard Davis had very clearly explained normalcy and how it should be challenged in disability studies. So you can just Google Leonard Davis and can find many books. Like there are several editions of the disability studies reader.
Sharada, will you put the title of the books and
okay,
the author's name in the chat?
That's better, I think.
Yeah,
Write
so
it down, that's better. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll...
Yeah, okay, I will type those names in the chat box.
Yeah, do that.
May I tag the keywords?
Yes, please speak.
Dr. Sharada Devi, ma'am, congratulations. You have made an excellent presentation on the topic. and a very good initiative to remove many concepts, many misconceptions on the concept of disability and help us to see that concept as diversity. Thank you very much. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Please
Yes,
unmute.
something,
Yeah,
Jamila.
Usha.
Yeah, Sharda, if you don't mind, can you just give us a bit of your academic background, like from your schooling, college, and how did you come to disability studies?
Oh, okay. Ma'am. So I studied in mainstream school, educational institutions. Like I studied at a school run by Kerala Hatti Praja Sabha at Vazhakada, Thiruvananthapuram, called Adarsh Vidyalaya, from first standard to sixth standard. And later on, I studied at Cotton Hill School, Cotton Hill Government Girls Higher Secondary School until +2. And then I did my graduation and post-graduation in English language and literature at Gordon College for Women, Thiruvananthapuram. And then I cleared UGC NET in English and also joined the Institute of English for pursuing MPhil in English. And after that, I worked as a guest lecturer in English for 1 year at Women's College itself from 2016 to 17. And it was after that I registered for PhD back at Institute of English. It was in April 2018. And after a research for about 3 years and 7 months, I finally submitted thesis on December 3rd to 2021. That was International Day of Persons with Disabilities. So I submitted on that day itself. And then finally, my open defense was on November 21st. And I was awarded PhD on 8th December by the syndicate of the University of Kerala. And about how I started my research on disability studies, when I was doing MPhil, we had to do a small research work, MPhil research. So I was searching for a suitable topic, and then one of my teachers, Dr. Sajeev Samaros, he had taught me for both BA and MA at Women's College. So he's like a mentor to me. He always gives me suggestions and directions and help me move forward whenever I'm in doubt. So he then told me that Sharda, there is a field called, it was back in 2014. So he said that Sharda, there was a there was a new academic discipline called disability studies in India. It's not much developed. So you should know about it. You should read about it, and you should do something on that particular area. You can definitely contribute to that field. So then I started reading some basic facts about disability studies, how it came into existence and all. And then I did my MPhil research on that area itself, but it was a mini kind of thesis that took only 6 months. The first 6 months was for other syllabus related works. So and then I found that there was a lot of scope for PhD research also, because my MPhil guide was Dr. Meenakshi Pillai, current dean of the Faculty of Arts at University of Kerala. So ma'am said that you limit the scope of the research because it's an MPhil research. So you can expand the scope more further when you do PhD. So after 3 or 4 years, after that, when I thought of doing PhD, I had no confusion regarding the area. I just had to finalize a particular topic. That's all I had to do. So yeah, that's how I landed in the role of a disability studies scholar. Then I had more as a PhD researcher, because during MPhil, I hadn't been able to read a lot because it was a mini research. So it was after starting the preparations for PhD that I got to read more about disability studies, and it actually opened a lot of opportunities for me to explore more, and it changed my perspectives altogether as a person also. It also helped me to reassert my identity as a disabled person, because during my full time, I was a person who used the term differently abled. But after starting PhD, after going through many experiences, after learning many things, I changed my perspective and I disowned that term, differently abled. I'm now against all these euphemistic phrases. I am now asserting the fact that I'm a disabled person or a person with a physical disability and a wheelchair user. Yeah.
Thank you, Sharda. And there's a glad news that I would like to tell you. She has passed the UGC NET examination. She has also written the PSC exams and the interview, and she is waiting now for the results. And I'm sure she will become a teacher as you dreamt.
Oh, very good.
Thank
Can
you.
I say something, Jamila?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, I'm Kamini, a member of the AWC Trivandrum chapter. First of all, congratulations on being conferred doctorate, Dr. Sharada. I'm very
Thank you,
proud of
ma'am.
you. Second thing is, it was a wonderful presentation.
Thank
And
you.
you have really, we have really changed our perception about what is disability and what is normal. Only now we understand. And you've really worked hard, and we are very astonished by and very happy to note your achievement. Come a long way, and really achieved something because of your hard work. And as you said, because of your change in the perception, maybe, I don't know. Now, I was a teacher in women's college. You may not know me. I'm Kamini. I worked in the home science department. Okay. And so as studying in the women's college, what were your experiences? Because I'm anxious to know. Can I ask you that? If it is okay, can I?
My experience at women's college, ma'am?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. I'm very happy to.
Maybe the problems you faced, and also the help you got.
Or whether you received any help. Because ours was a science department, I didn't have any such children in my department. But I would like to know, because people who had such disabilities all took art subject, not science subject. So I don't know what your experiences may be, if it is not too personal. Can you answer that?
Sure, ma'am. Because I have often written about my experiences. I mean, the kind of social systemic discrimination that I have to face during many instances. I have always wrote about that, also spoken about it. So it's not a problem at all. So I studied at Women's College from 2008 to 2013, 5 years for my degree and PG.
Okay.
So my department was very supportive, because when I joined there in 2008, the college was not wheelchair friendly at all. But when we gave a request to the college, to the department, to get a ramp constructed to my classrooms every year, they were very supportive. The department, the then HOD, during my degree days, it was P. Vijaykumar sir. He was very supportive. He made all arrangements for getting the ramp constructed. So that from the department, from my teachers at the English department, I only received support and encouragement. But I had some bitter experiences from the college. It was not, those experiences were not from my department, but my department supported me even during that time. It was from the Malayalam department. I chose Malayalam as my second language. So, we know for the first 2 years we have to study second language. Then when I joined my batch and another batch, we were combined together as a single batch. So our class, Malayalam class, was supposed to be conducted in another building upstairs. So then my mother went to the Malayalam department. She approached the HOD, Malayalam HOD, and gave her request to get that class downstairs, preferably to my class itself. It's a big class also. That other batch, that those students can easily come to our class, which is downstairs. So it's very easy. They don't have to go upstairs. So, but then the HOD, the teacher, she was hesitant. She mentioned certain difficulties, technical difficulties and all. Oh, it's very difficult. And she was kind of indifferent. But my mother was stern in her demand, and she asked her, these children also should get opportunities to study and all. And then it was only after many such attempts made by my mother that they actually brought that Malayalam class to my classroom. And by that time, many classes were conducted, and I lost those classes. So that was one bitter experience that I had to face during my education period. But in that also, my English department had supported me a lot. So that is one thing that I still cherish. And when I went back to the college as a guest lecturer, then also I had to face some problems from Malayalam department itself. That's a kind of irony, because as a student and as a guest lecturer, I had to face bit experiences from the Malayalam department. That also was related to room issue. But then there also my department, English department, had supported me. The then HOD, Deepa ma'am, she also taught me when I was a student there. So she greatly supported me when such access issues happened because of the intervention of a Malayalam sir. So that is also an unfortunate thing, and a bitter memory in my mind whenever I think of my experience as a guest lecturer at Women's College. But other than that, it was a very nice experience to work at my alma mater.
And what about friends? You had friends?
Yeah, friends were also very supportive. They were always with me and encouraged me, helped me, supported me. And even today, I'm in touch with most of them. Especially my best friends during college. I'm still in touch with.
Very good. Very good. So nice to hear, because Jamila, myself, Usha, all of us have studied in women's college, you know. And by being a teacher there, I felt that you should have good experiences, but I'm sorry to hear about the indifference of the Malayalam department. But otherwise, you are happy, isn't it?
Yes, yes. Otherwise, that was the only trouble that I had to face at Women's College. My department stood with me, was always there for me.
Okay. So that was very nice to know about you. And all the best to you, Sharda. And you're a courageous girl. I wish all the other children also be like you. That's what. And we have a lot of important role to play as part of the NGO. We have a lot of important role to play, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, one more thing, Sharda. You mentioned your mother. Can you just give a brief comment on how important family support has been for you? Because other people like you know, they can take encouragement from your experience. Can you just briefly tell us that?
Sure, ma'am. Sure,
Thank you.
ma'am. Yeah, definitely. Like we always say, family is the strength of every person. We all know that, but it's especially more important when it comes to the case of a person with a disability. In my case, I'm very privileged. I always say that I'm very privileged because I have a supportive family. So my parents, my family, never they never got depressed because of the fact that I'm a person with a disability. So my parents they had this determination to give me education. So they send me to mainstream schools itself. They send me to mainstream college itself, university. They never wanted to let my physical condition affect my life, to affect my dreams, my education, my career, and so on. So they have done and they are still doing everything that is possible for my development. My parents, my brother, and also my uncle and aunt, my father's brother and his wife, all of them are doing what all things they can to empower me more. So without their support, I would never have reached this stage. And I said that I'm privileged to get such a supportive family because I know there are many disabled people in our country, but all of them are not able to get opportunities like me, or even if they get opportunities, they are not able to pursue those opportunities because of several factors. And one of the important factors is, of course, the family support. I know I have heard many parents of people with disabilities. They think that what is the need to give education to our child with disability? How can he or she go to work, go to study? That's the kind of mindset of many people with parents of people with disabilities. So they will hesitate to even try sending their children to study or to work. So this actually hinders the development of these people with disabilities. So that is why I said that I'm very privileged to get a supportive family. My mother is usually focuses on my studies. I mean, she is also postgraduate in English literature. So she is the one who mostly focuses on my education. So she is very strict also. She never lets me go lazy. I have to study and I have to get very good marks. My condition is not an excuse for failing or scoring poor. So, so it was the kind of way in which she brought me up. So during my childhood, she had to tie me like that. But when I get older each year, then I got that determination. So I understood the value of education and how it is important for a person with a disability or for any individual. So then I realized it, and I automatically wanted to perform well, even without my mother pushing me. But even today, also, she is always concerned.
We would like to congratulate her. This forum would like to congratulate her for helping
and my father is always concerned with making spaces accessible, like how I can go to places with accessible facilities and all. So education is the domain of my mother.
I think we have someone who's raised his hand, Umesh Kumar Rai. Please unmute and ask.
There are some new chats also, Jamila ji.
Huh?
Yeah, there was a
Chat.
question.
Chat box, something is
Hello,
there.
ma'am.
Yeah, from Kausalya to everyone.
Hello, ma'am. This is Umesh Kumar Rai.
Yeah, please. I'll come back to the chat later. Yeah,
Ma'am,
please go on.
it was very wonderful presentation, and I went through all the details. But I don't think I am asking the most relevant question, but it is in my mind that can we have the can we have the disability in the lens of the cost and benefit, like say for disabled person to mainstream them, there is the infrastructural and several other expenses, and how a person on the macro, or how the government in the micro level, or the individual family at the micro level can analyze the profitability of raising the disabled person. Like say in poor family, they think that while expending all the resources on disabled person, we should help the younger or older child who is not disabled, because he will perform better in society and help the family in the economically. So can I have some thought on this?
Yes, Sharda, would you like to respond to that?
Okay. Yeah, that's that's one of the realities in our country, especially in a developing country like India, where there are many people belonging to poor financial backgrounds and poor social situations, because there are so many intersectional factors that get involved in our country, like race, caste, gender, economic condition, and also these factors will always affect the way in which people with disabilities are treated in society. So actually there is, like I said, there is an act here in our country called the RPWD Act, and it has provisions for the mainstreaming of persons with disabilities, how they can be brought into the mainstream society, how they can be given opportunities to live just like non-disabled people. There are so many things that can be done for persons with different kinds of disabilities, not just physical disability, but there are 21 types of disabilities recognized in our country according to this act. So each category of people should get opportunities to lead mainstream life. So that is what the RPWD Act has proposed. And the government, both at the central level and at the micro levels, the governments have the responsibility, they have the accountability to implement those provisions. But unfortunately, just like other acts, other laws, the provisions in this act also mostly remain only in papers. Then they seldom get implemented. That's the reality. So if our governments implement these provisions stated in the RPWD Act, then people with disabilities belonging to all social sections will get opportunities to lead a mainstream life, including the ones you mentioned, like people with disabilities belonging to poor financial backgrounds. Those families are not able to educate the disabled children because of their poor financial backgrounds. But governments can do that. Governments can implement policies that will help these families to educate their children, disabled children, to empower their disabled children. So governments are supposed to help these underprivileged communities to empower their disabled members. So unfortunately, that does not happen in most cases.
I think, Sharda, the question was, if I'm right, I felt that the question was, if you have two children in the family, way back in poor families, when there is a boy and a girl, the boy used to be educated, the girl would not be educated.
Yeah.
But today all that has changed and people have realized the value of education.
Yeah.
So if you have an able person in the family and a disabled one in the family, will the poor community or who do not have enough financial resources to educate both the children, because educating a disabled child calls for more financial input, will the families ignore the disabled and be and help only the able child to go up in life? But I think from your own family, as you said, you have a brother and you are there, and both of you have received almost the same kind of education in mainstream education institutions. So if it is in a poor family, will the government come in? And I think that is something that it's something that we should be thinking about, whether the government will come in to help the disabled in the family from a poor family to come into mainstream.
If that's what he has indicated in this question, that also depends on that family also, because some families will try to educate all children irrespective of their financial troubles and whether their children are disabled or not. Some families may have that kind of mindset. So they will do what all they can to do that. But there are some families will think that, oh, we can educate a non-disabled child. It will be futile to educate a disabled child. Some families may think like that. So it depends on the family. So it can be subjective when it concerns the attitude of the parents.
Yes. We have some messages in the chat box. Kausalya has written, ma'am, disability studies is a relatively new topic in India. Were there any challenges in doing research on disability studies? If any, could you please share with us? Actually, disability studies, like gender studies, has come into mainstream studies now in sociology departments as well as English literature departments. And quite a number of our students at the Institute, I think, have taken up disability studies from various angles as area of research. Now, Jani has said to...
Ma'am, I would like to know the database also. The database from disability studies can be searched easily.
Yes. Jani says to everyone, have you ever been an activist fighting for removing barriers, both physical and attitudinal?
Okay, I will first answer Kausalya's question. Well, I started my PhD research in 2018 April. So at that time in Kerala, this was not a much developed academic discipline. So the challenges that I faced were mainly related to collecting materials, especially secondary materials. Because one thing is, the libraries here did not have books and articles related to disability studies. The second thing is that even if the libraries had those materials, I wouldn't be able to access them because of infrastructural access issues, because most of the libraries are not wheelchair friendly. So that was the main challenge that I had to face. But then thanks to a website, a platform called literariness.org. It's a website curated by a sir named Nasrullah Mambo. So he collects so many ebooks and research articles from different academic research areas, and he puts them all together in that platform, and he has also created so many WhatsApp groups and Telegram groups for that, for sharing them. So it was then that I got in touch with this particular site and this particular person. So he and his literariness.org helped me a lot in accessing books like the ones I mentioned, Leonard Davis, Enforcing Normalcy. I got that book from that platform because it's not easy to buy those books. They are very expensive. So the fellowship won't be enough to buy those books. So that platform helped me a lot in solving, in going through that challenge. And then some access issues were there. Because of that, I hadn't been able to watch some open defenses at my center because the building is an old one. So it was not, the upstairs hall was not accessible to me. So until the COVID time, I was not able to attend any open defenses that were held at my center. After the COVID-19 broke out, everything went online, and then I got to attend many open defenses, pre-submissions and all. So that was, I never imagined that I could watch an open defense before my own open defense. But thanks to COVID-19, I got so many opportunities.
Yeah, the department has gone back to offline again. So PhD,
Yeah,
PhD open defenses are in the upstairs room.
Most of the open defenses are now offline, but mine was hybrid.
I'm Manjula Ghosh from Calcutta.
Yeah,
Manjula Ghosh from Calcutta.
Yeah, please go on.
Can I say something to Sharada?
Yeah.
Dear Sharada, it is commendable of you to come to this level. Really, I'm admiring you all the time. The whole program, I'm admiring you. I've got a niece, Oloka Guha. She's working with the education of a disabled person for a long time. She was head of the Chennai Institute of Disabled Person. But I heard something from her. But to get her, to see you is really something. Thank you very much for the whole thing. Thank you.
Anyone else?
And ma'am, there's another question that I missed. Have you ever been an activist fighting for removing barriers? Yeah, I think earlier I used to think that I'm not an activist. I thought that being an activist means going to many places and doing many things. So then I used to consider myself just as a disability rights advocate. But then after attending a webinar on disability studies, I got a new perspective. Like one of the resource persons was also a disability studies expert, a scholar. So that ma'am was saying that any disabled person can be an activist. Like you need not have to go to many places, and you need not have to do strikes, agitations and all to be an activist. It has many dimensions. So through my small interventions, I don't call them as very big significant ones, but I'm trying within my limitations I'm making interventions within my limitations to bring some kind of change in society, in the lives of persons with disabilities, how persons with disabilities are treated and perceived by the majority of society. So now I consider myself as a disability rights activist, and also I'm a disability studies scholar also. So disability study has this aim to mainstream disabled people. So every disability studies scholar should have that aim in mind. That's what I believe. So as a disability studies scholar and as an activist, yes, I'm fighting for removing these barriers, both in my life and in the lives of other persons with disabilities.
Yeah, your visibility itself makes you an activist, because the moment you become visible and you create awareness, you are an activist. We have one more question, I think, from Kala, who has been raising her hand for some time. Yeah, Kala, please unmute and ask. You have not unmuted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Dr. Sharda, I'm Dr. Srikala. And as a previous person said, I was so much now filled with admiration for you, your talk. And I understand that the unstinting support from your parents and your dedication and hard work helped you to reach this position. It was a wonderful talk. There was so much of clarity in your talk. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I thank
Thank
Dr. Jamila Begum for sharing with me the link.
Thank you. I think we are well over time, and it's time for Usha to give the vote of thanks. So thank you very much, Sharda. And now Usha for the formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, Jamila. Dr. Sharda, a wonderful presentation, and we all enjoyed. And I realized that we all have a lot to learn from people like you. Earlier, we had Tiffany Brar on one of our webinars. When if you or others may remember, we had her in one of the webinars looking beyond COVID-19. And when she spoke to us, we realized that many small things which pose challenges to the visually challenged people. And like that, we have a lot to learn. And for example, just yesterday, Sharda sent me a message asking that if any hearing impaired person joins your webinar, will that person be able to follow? And actually, I was a little taken aback because I had never thought of this, that a person with hearing impairment may join our webinar, and this in spite of the fact that my mother is hearing impaired. She has been wearing hearing aids for decades, and now with advancing age, even the very powerful hearing aids are not helping her to get the clarity. So she watches for some time, and if there are no PPTs, she's not able to follow, and then she sort of loses interest and drops out. But then it never occurred to me that there may be ways in which we can make it friendly for hearing impaired. And it was news to me when Sharda told me that Zoom has a facility which automatically gives subtitles to the talks of the people. Google, she says, is having that facility, and she told me Zoom also has. And I tried yesterday to go to Zoom and check the settings and see if we can do anything, but unfortunately I could not do it. But I promise you, Sharda, I'll definitely go into it, and if there is any way, we'll make our webinars disabled friendly, certainly, in any way that we can do. So that is, one small thing. So I realized that there are many things which we take for granted. We never look at it from the point of view of the person who's going through. Even as I said, in my case, though in front of my eyes, I'm seeing it, but then it never occurred to me that we can do something to help those people. So thank you so much. And another thing is, we would very much like you to be part of AWC, because I feel that organizations like ours, we have a large network, and we can do a lot for the disabled people, and also especially in spreading awareness about the issues that we just discussed, about the mindset of parents, the mindset of the economically backward people, and how we can make them aware of how important it is to educate a child, irrespective of the child being able or disabled. And for the economically difficult people, we can advise them. And if any government schemes are available, you said the Act itself provides for government to intervene. So we can make them aware of such schemes and help them to educate their children. So I invite you to become a member of AWC and help us in this. You can be our advisor. You can tell us how we can go ahead in this venture. And since it is already over time, I will not give that short introduction on AWC, which usually we give. Just in 2 lines, I can sum up that AWC, All India Women's Conference, was established in 1927. And we had very great stalwarts like Sarojini Naidu, Sarojini Vardappan, and a lot of all the top leaders of the Indian women's movement as our leaders. And as of now, we have more than 600 branches across the country and more than 1 lakh women voluntary workers. So that is just a very small summary of All India Women's Conference. So I thank you, Dr. Sharda, for attending this webinar and really illuminating us on these issues about disability studies. That itself is an eye-opener. I didn't know that this is a big branch of research studies that is opening up, and a lot of people are taking interest in this. And the way it has developed, you made it very interesting, that journey very interesting. Thank you so much. And
thank you, ma'am.
You should thank you, Jamila, for being the pillar of strength of this literary and cultural forum, and sustaining it for 2 years. It has been a tremendous success, and I know it takes a lot of effort, and all the work has been Dr. Jamila's. I have only been supporting by providing a link to the Zoom platform. Everything else is done by her. Identification of speakers and of topics, and we have had people from across the country and top experts from so many different fields. 24 lectures means, we had 24 different topics and 24 different segments that we covered. So it has been a wonderful journey. Thank you, Jamila, for that. And thank you, Bhuneshwari, for supporting as a co-host as always. And I thank all others, members of AWC and non-members of AWC who have joined us today. We had good attendance. I thank you all for joining us and encouraging us. And we hope to meet you at the next session of Literary and Cultural Forum lectures, which will be, I think, most probably on the first Saturday of January. This month we had to postpone it a little. The normal practices, we always meet on the first Saturday of the month. And this time, because the first Saturday happened to be the Disability Day, and Dr. Sharda was invited by the government for honoring her, we sort of rescheduled it. So we hope to meet you all in the next lecture. Thank you so much, and we'll end the session. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you, Jamila.
Usha. Thank you, Sharda, and all of you who have joined
Thank you,
here.
everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.